Which they University had issued something from Jalen Green
Yeah.
about the target hit. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, just, he's apologetic. He feels really bad about it, and it's obviously not the thing that we like to see. So we learn from it, and that's what I'll say about it. So
You got to talk with him,
yeah, I mean, it's all those things that go into it, and we try to educate guys as much as possible. And fortunately, there's no injuries with it, and he doesn't feel good about it. I can tell you that. And obviously, from our standpoint, is we want clean football.
How much better was the defense with Stearns and Foster? And
Well, it made it easier to, like we talked about beforehand, in terms of some of the stuff that we can do, and and not worry about people misaligning. We cut a guy loose in the beginning of the game, which was not good. But then we finally settled in, and then we started to play a little bit more. And you can get a sense of the communication, which it's not just coming from one guy. And I think even a guy like Brandon Jones, I thought played better because he's probably not worried about some of the younger kids that he's probably got to get lined up and talk to and do all that, and he can just relax and focus on his job. So I told Caden this, I think it was on Saturday, that I was really proud of him, and I appreciate it, because a lot of these guys are banged up, and they're out there, they're fighting, scratching and clawing, but they knew the importance of the game, and they didn't want to let their teammates down. And to me, that's all you can ask for. And like I said, it's going to take him a little bit of time to get in full swing. There's things that he can get better at. But just going out there and being able to just call the game and not worry about, hey, if I call this, and he wasn't great at it in practice, but I need this call. You don't have to think that way, so which makes it a lot easier for us.
Y'all were really able to limit Purdy last year. How has he grown since the game last year?
Yeah, his progression in terms of where he's at is very similar to Sam's. I think when Sam first got here and went out there, you knew he was going to be something special, and then once in a while he would do something and be like, that's kind of like a freshman mistake. And then Sam's second year, he just took off, and this kid's the same way. The one thing that's really similar about both of them, they're just ferocious competitors. They never get rattled. They're always trying to make a play, and then he's got accuracy, and he gets the ball out of his hands really, really quick, so it's hard to get to him. So he's growing up. He's going to be a monster, next year and the following year, and he's on his way of doing it right now. It's just he's really has command of what's going on right now. So, they've done a really good job in his development.
When you look at Purdy, build off that OU game, that last 14, 16 minutes, I mean,
Yeah.
he was on a tear there. What did you see, when they were playing against OU?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, OU was bringing it. I mean, they were trying to get after him, and I just think his poise, you just watch him, and it's, we're fortunate to see it every week with Sam, where it's it's really, really hard to get Sam rattled. It's really, really hard to get this guy rattled, too. He's always looking downfield. He's always trying to extend plays, and I think that's frustrating. I mean, if you're a coordinator, if you're a defensive player, and you got the guy one-on-one, he makes you miss, and, all of a sudden it's a critical throw, and he throws the ball on the money, and it's just some people just have that, and he does. So I think it's going to get better and better, and and he's hard to rattle.
how much can Chris Brown help? And he's got the cast on.
He's going to help. He's going to help. So Chris is, it's one of those things where it's last week we're keeping an eye on monitoring him, find out what he could do and where he was at, physically. But Chris is going to help us this week.
Talk about the use of their tight end. I think it's number 88. So
Yeah.
Anthony's their second leading receiver on the
Yeah.
team right now.
Yeah, I mean they're big body guys. I mean they're such hard matchups. We played against them last year, and who do you put on them? If you put a DB on them that weighs 190 pounds, they get boxed out. You put a linebacker on them, maybe it's a little bit too slow. So and they expose those matchups. They'll come out with 2, 3 tight ends at a time. And I know versus Texas Tech, they threw a kind of a jump ball fade, and he was going against the 5'9" corner. So, I mean, in those situations, that's NFL. That's why the Gronkowskis, those type of guys, are so hard to match up with, because they can run well enough to beat you, so you can't put LBs on them. And then, from a bigger body standpoint, if you put smaller guys on them, they'll just try to get around their guys' backs and just catch the ball right in front of you. So it's a unique offense that creates a lot of tight end matchup issues. That's the biggest thing we recognize.
Todd, against Kansas State, like obviously the early third downs, there was a lot of struggle against the shallow crossing
Yeah.
routes.
Well, we cut a couple routes loose. So we cut one out of the backfield, and then we cut one coming across the field. So those were mental mistakes. So, it was disappointing because when we came off the bench, it's one of those things where you say to yourself, like, that's not a great call, or a guy got confused. It was just to cut a guy loose. So I brought him over to the bench and like, hey, will we please settle down, calm down. I know it's a big game and it's, we're out here, but we just need to relax. And they responded to that. It came out in the second half and they ran the same 2 plays and we covered them. But it's just, it's one of these things where we've got to be dialed in all the time, especially when you're younger. So we've been just really preaching that in practice. It's like, okay, we know the talent's there. We can run and we can do all these things, but we've got to really work on being elite with our discipline and focus. And I think that's an everyday deal. So we go into a meeting, dial in, focus in a meeting. We go out to practice, we go through a walkthrough. Everything counts. And especially with some of the younger, inexperienced guys, that's what we've been preaching to them. And we're starting to get better, and we're going to start to see more and more results. And then, but we got to go. I mean, we're in November right now, and we've got a critical game on the road and a great environment with a lot on the line. And this is where you really have to be dialed in.
How do you rate Juwan Mitchell against the run and dropping into coverage?
In the run game, I still think he can do some more things in the run game because I've seen it in practice. In the pass game, he's just, to me, it's just fundamentals and technique, and I think that's probably the biggest thing. I truly believe, and I've told him this before, is he needs to really work with Yancey, just developing strength and doing. He's a guy that got in here a little bit late, and I think as he gets stronger, especially through his lower half, you're going to see, a much faster athlete, a much more explosive athlete. So that's where we're at. I mean, we're in the middle of the season right now, so we are who we are. But I think you'll continue to see him the more Yancey gets his hands on him to make him stronger, especially through his lower half.
How much is the weather going to affect the atmosphere?
Well, I don't know. I mean, to me, I've always thought of it because, I spent most of my life up north. It's usually when you're talking about living down here in heat, it's usually a mental deal. When you're running, you're heated up and the air's a little bit thicker, and most of the time what ends up happening is the surface, especially if we're playing on grass, is probably a little bit slicker. So those are kind of the things that you got to get accustomed to. And then you got to learn how to go to the sidelines and just reheat yourself up. So you're always constantly staying loose. But it's usually been in between the ears, to be honest with you. I mean, unless it's like, Arctic weather. I mean, if it's like wind chill is one thing and being cold is another thing, trust me from being. And when you start talking about like negatives and you're talking about teens, especially the wind chill factor, that is physically an issue, I can tell you that. But when it's 34 degrees out with a little bit of wind, to me, if you're worried about that, then you can't play football. You shouldn't be playing football if you're worried about that. So I just think and for us, we went out the last 2 days, and it's been around the ballpark of probably what at least kickoff will be. So we got them outside and we worked out in it just to take away that thought process of going up there and starting to chatter about it. But go out in the field and run around for an hour and a half. You're not going to be worried about about how cold it is. And take the opposite approach, and if it was 95 degrees out and you're running around for an hour and a half, you're going to be talking about heat, I can promise you that. So they'll be fine. I'm not worried about that.
What did they figure out? Offensively, they were really struggling the first couple games of the year. And then it seemed like maybe in the fourth quarter against Baylor, they figured some stuff out.
Yeah, I just think they've kind of created their identity of, what they want to do. And I think a lot of it goes through Brock. And they say, hey, listen, this is what we're good at, and this kid's really, really accurate, and if we have to throw the ball 40 times or whatever it may be, we'll do it. But everything is high percentage throws, so it's not like sometimes you get into it, I'm gonna throw 15 go balls down the sidelines and we're gonna complete 2 or 3 of them, which is not good. you know. These are, you know, intermediate routes, and he's really, really good at putting the ball on people. And I think he's great at, like, he's got a clock in his head, and if it's not there, the ball's getting thrown anyway. You know, if people are coming at, and that ball's getting thrown, so he's not taking any sacks. I think they only given up like 12 sacks this year, which is really, really impressive when you're throwing the ball. You know, he's like the number 6 guy in the country throwing the football. So if you're doing that and not giving up sacks, you're efficient. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that they said, like, hey, listen, we can get the ball out and make these almost like runs, you know, but give our guys chances to extend plays. So that's where they've become a lot better.
It's not
Time for
common.
two last ones?
It's not common in the conference, but both Kansas State and Iowa State run 12 personnel, 22 personnel. Do you feel like you have an advantage when offenses show that and you can bring in your big guys and take it?
Well, this one's a little bit different. Iowa State's a little bit different because, you know, they can throw the ball to these guys, and they're not that they don't, but, you know, your typical 12 and your typical like 13, like 3 tight ends is normally lined up just like Kansas State said, and we're going to take your will away from you. These guys are a little bit different. But to answer your question about K-State, yes. About these guys, probably not as much because they have the ability to flex these guys out and make them receivers. So if you get too big out there, it goes back to the same issues that you have when you bring linebackers in the cover guys, that you like those matchups. So that's where they're really unique. They'll catch some people in like nickel personnel, and I know they did in OU where they can have smaller guys matched up on them. So we're going to have to be very mindful of that, and we've been working like crazy on those personnel groupings.
Coach, this week and last week you've gotten a lot of key players back from injuries. So how do you keep these players confident, and how do you get them to stop thinking about their past injuries?
Well, I don't, you know, I think a lot of these guys, I'm very proud of the fact that a lot of these guys are probably still a little bit banged up. They are. So they're going out there because they know that their teammates and this program and institution need them. And I couldn't be prouder. Like we just talked about Caden, and we could talk about BJ, CB, you know, the same way. And it's like when you have guys like that, you know, they're out there watching some of the stuff and you know, they're processing, but you know, they got to be healthy too. They got to be cleared. I mean, we're going to put somebody on the field that's not medically cleared, but you know, when they get close and you watch them down rehab, do a little bit extra. You know, when you watch them in there 24/7, like getting in my ear, don't worry, I'm going to be back. I'm going to be back in a couple days. I promise you I'll be out there. And then to see them go in there and have success, you know, you don't have to worry about their confidence and all that stuff. They're back there for a reason, and you literally have to pull them off the field because if they didn't, they wouldn't do that. They'd say, okay, listen, whatever, I can do this, and I can, you know, watch this, but I'm really, really proud of those guys. I really am, because that shows a lot of toughness. But more importantly is when your kind of family's in need, it's like I'm not going to turn my back away from you guys. I'm going to work even harder to get out there. So hopefully we continue to get guys back and you know, and keep improving.
Real quick, which players could you see
Last one.
on your side of the ball end up coaching one day?
Malcolm for sure. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I mean, to me, that guy is. I mean, he's everything that you want, and I think CB would have that into him too. You know, CB would be a guy that I would say that, but Malcolm for sure. Malcolm, I mean, 10 years from now, if you know, after his NFL career is over with, I promise you that he'll be someplace coaching.
Why CB?
I just think CB is a very, very intelligent guy, but CB got juice. You know, CB can, you know, he can motivate, you know, so well. You know, he can get people going, and I think some guys just have that in their DNA, and he's one of those guys, and he's very intelligent. He knows football. So if that was something that, you know, that eventually he wanted to do, not that he couldn't do a million other things, but I think he would be a guy that, you know, can make somebody run through a wall for him.
How are you?
How's
All
Colin
right,
doing?
good. He's doing good. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
If he can't go, do y'all still think y'all be able to run that 10 personnel that y'all
Sure.
showed?
Yeah, we can do that. We got a lot of guys. You got confidence in all those guys. They've all played in games. They don't have the experience maybe Colin has, or you know, Colin has a lot of productivity obviously for us, but I mean, we need those guys, and they've repped and played, and if Colin can't go, then they got to go.
Who's the next guy up in that full white set?
I don't know. We're using different guys, looking at them. Just depends on what we're going to do. Got a couple different sets.
Tim, what kind of difference does it make when Keontae is running as hard as he was Saturday?
It makes a big difference, as you can tell. We've talked about this a number of times, right? Just run hard, and whether he makes the right cut or wrong cut, make it right, and he did. He's starting to get more confidence. I think he's seeing things really, really well. He's starting to run through arm tackles, run over guys, and that's all confidence and seeing things. And he did a really nice job in the game, and our O-line did a nice job. And obviously that the combination between that, the RPO game, the things we were doing, we fed off each other. Both things fed off him. And Sam did a great job of managing the game, and every single play in the game he had to make decisions on, and he did really well doing it.
This whatever the weather is, this type of scenario sets up really well for a run game attack. It seems like to me, run the ball, shorten the game, things like that. I mean, do y'all ever present it to them in that way, or?
No, not really. I mean, right? Coach talk, yeah, run the football, big play, throw down the field, right? Everybody says that,
right.
But what's real is you got to take what they give you, right? And get the ball to the guys that are making plays for you. Like, that's real. So when people say, what do you got planned? I don't know. Like, what are they going to give us? What adjustments could we need to make? And then get the ball to the guys that need to get them. How? Well, I don't know. Let's find out what formations work and how they're trying to cover us, and how they're aligning defensively to certain things, and then go from there. So we have a plan based on evaluation of film and game plans from other teams, but that stuff's overrated, because you don't ever see what they're planning for you isn't the same plan they had for TCU or Baylor or Oklahoma. It's not.
Right.
So there's carryover in games you see, and you practice that stuff. And
there's an RPO that you're using, the kind of the deep slant. I think hit it about 4 times. It's new this year. What is it that makes that play so effective, and how has that helped the offense?
Well, we've used it a lot. We've had it, all season. We haven't used it as much. It just depends, again, what are the better RPOs based on coverage, leverage, pressures, all that, right? Front, if it's Okie or if it's not. I just think it stresses defensively, because you get vertical push. And so you create bigger chunks of plays than throwing the ball laterally. But you're also at times rolling the dice if they're pressuring, because the guy you're reading in the RPO game, if he's pressuring, nobody's blocking that guy. So it just depends on all that.
Coach, Junior goes down, you guys move Kurt Steadman in, and then Okafor on the outside. What did you see from those guys on that right side?
I thought, my hat goes off to Derek, poor guy. Like, he's played every position, right? And we don't rep him there a whole lot. He gets a couple of plays at guard, but for him to go in there and do all the things that we asked those guys to do, their blitz package on 3rd down and all the protection issues and calls that we had, and he went in there and didn't miss a beat. Like, that was impressive. And Denzel played well, but he also works at that position, so you would expect him to be ready. He started 2 years ago. I know we forget that, but 2 years ago he was our starting tackle when Connor went down. So I thought those guys did a nice job.
Back with Denzel, just talking about him staying mentally ready.
Yeah.
That's sometimes hard to do.
The good part, we rep him a lot in practice, meaning like those 3 tackles, and even Derek or even Denzel at guard, sometimes we throw them in there just to keep those guys for emergency purposes. And Herb does a great job with all that. And, it's paid off. It's why, right, play your best 5, rotate guys, get them in and out, and then you have other guys, well, how come you're doing that? You need to build, that camaraderie and that. I know, but when you do that and you just play 5 all the time and the other guy's not in there and you got to put him in there, there's a gaping hole. And so Herb's did a good job with them, and he fit right in. And that's been kind of the MO. Go back to the first question, what do you do if Colin doesn't play? I know, like, the next guy's got to step up. It's been that way all year and every year and probably on every team. So.
How much did you have to adjust when Cade went down, especially in the TCU game?
It's just different. You know, Reese is a little different player than Cade, and so is Jared. So they're a little bit different, but they know all the offense and they know the things we need to do, and they can execute all the things we need to do. So it wasn't like we said, hey, don't run these plays because these guys are in. We didn't do that.
With recruiting, Devin's 90 yards away from being a 1,000-yard receiver. Little Jordan was a 1,000-yard receiver last year. Is it a really nice feather in the cap to be able to go into living rooms and say, hey, you can come to Texas, gain 1,000 yards, put up stats, and increase your notoriety?
Yeah, there's no doubt that, you know, we're able to take advantage of that guy in the slot, probably as good as anybody in the country, based on the numbers dating back to, you know, 4 or 5 years ago even, right, at places we've been, Coach Herman and myself. So every year we've had those kinds of guys. And same with the big guys. You know, if you're a big receiver, it's a good place to go as well because we know how to use them and utilize them well. So I know if I'm a wide receiver, I'm looking at Texas for sure.
With the way the conference is, with the spread passing, do you basically have to have that in order to be competitive for wide receivers?
No, I don't think necessarily that you have to have that. You know, kids look for different things, right? Some look for playing time, some look for location, proximity, and then some look for stats. So it just varies on what that individual's trying to get out of his career when he goes there, how well he's going to get developed. You know, I think Drew and Corby have done a fantastic job with those guys. I mean, you look at the development of that crew over the last 3 years since we've been here has been remarkable.
How similar is Iowa State's defense to what you guys run here?
There's parts of it.
Okay, does it help at all that there's a little familiarity that you do kind of see something, at least a variation that's in practice? It kind of was the defense that you guys decided to emulate a few years ago.
Yeah, but we have different twists on it than they do, and they keep, like everything, right? If you go back to us 3 years ago offensively and look at us now, how much different we are, right? I know, like 3 years ago they invented this thing against us, and they're a little different. They keep expanding their packages over and over again. So when you get them week, whatever we're in, 9 of season 3, there's a lot more defense than used to be. So it makes it a little bit harder.
Last 2 times you were away from home, you know, kind of tough getting going, getting into rhythm, getting what needs to happen, and how much confidence was picked up to take on the road.
Yeah, answer the second part. I think a lot of confidence was picked up. I think our guys we've never stopped believing, I know offensively, in our abilities, right? I don't think our players have ever doubted. At times maybe we don't execute as well, or you give credit to the teams that we're playing. They do a better job than we do. So, yeah, we got to start fast. There's no question about it. We are a resilient bunch, though. A lot of times, because things are a little bit different and teams play us different, it may take us a series or 2, and then we figure them out. We kind of get going again. So there's a never quit, never say die attitude on this football team, and it showed last week and continues to show. But it definitely helps getting a W. There's much different spirit and feeling around when that happens.
Time for a couple last ones.
Which players, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Which players on your unit could you see coaching one day?
Say it again.
Which players on your side of the ball could you see coaching one day?
Guys on our side of the ball that could coach, there's quite a few of them. I mean, I think Sam could be if he wanted to be. I don't know if he would. Casey probably would. I think Roshan. There's quite a few. I could see Cade Brewer. I mean, I can go down the list. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I think that they competitors and stuff, like it's kind of weird. It's like building something, right? You put together this plan and you get a chance to go out and see it execute and come full picture and feel really good about what happened. And some of those guys that compete, that's part of it too, right? Whether they're developing their bodies to go out and compete at a high level and have success, or whether it's developing a game plan at a high level to go out and watch it have success. Competitors are driven that way. So we have a lot of guys like that I can see that.
How's Jake Smith doing?
Jake's doing good. I think we talked about this last week a little bit. We want him to be, Devin Duvernay and LJ after 3 months of being in Austin, and it's probably was unfair to him, right? And he started a house of fire, and as freshmen all do, they hit the wall at some point. Every single one of them do, and he did at one point. But we've never lost confidence in him or his abilities. I think the guy's going to be a dynamic player, and he continues to work. That's what you love about Jake. Boy, he works really hard every day at practice, and he just keeps getting better.
You expressed concern a couple of weeks ago about Sam maybe forcing passes. Do you still see that, or you've seen a reduction in that?
No, I've seen a reduction. I've seen him last couple of weeks just go back to what got him successful a season ago, and even at the start of the season. Take what they give you. If I got to use my legs, take off, use my legs. It stresses the defense. So I think he's kind of relaxed a little bit, where he feels like, okay, I don't have to win the game for us. I just got to manage the game. I got to distribute the ball to the players and make good decisions. So if I can do those things, we got a chance.